Hello everybody, it's Monster Forge again, and I'm back with some new toys to look at. These are Mattel Masters of the Universe Mighty Masters figures. And what they are a line of approximately 3-inch tall. Some are a little bit over. I don't know if any of them are under. No, Beastman's taller. And Skeletor is right at it. But anyway, what these are is they're little kind of stylized based on the old Masters of the Universe vintage toy line, but they do have some they do have some updates to their design. It's basically a discount figure line for, folks who might not want to throw out a whole lot of bread for some little figures. I love them. This would have been, back in the day when we didn't, we weren't so well off. These kind of toys, if they had been out at the time, this would have been my Masters of the Universe collection. As it was, I would get a Masters of the Universe figure every once in a blue moon because they would have cost a little bit more. Now, ironically, these cost about the price of what a Masters Universe figure was back in the day. Yeah, these are $5, and each figure features. When I first saw them, or not advertised, but in the websites that were showing preview pictures of them, I thought they were like 5 points of articulation, but they're more than that. It has a neck joint that is actually a ball joint, so you can get them to look up and down. And I thought for sure these were going to be, like the figures are going to have the armor and stuff made onto them to kind of cut down on the cost. But they don't. They're actually removable pieces of soft vinyl. But there's a turn at the waist, and the shoulders are articulated. The hips are more articulated than I thought they were going to be. I thought they were just going to be, like straight cut joints into the hip that would kind of give you, kind of a swivel that goes around. But they're actually, there's a, let's see if I can show you better. There's a little swivel joint inside of there. So you can actually move the legs pretty far out and around. And I think why they did that with the legs particularly is because it kind of mimics the old vintage figures that that had the rubber bands at the hips. So you could move the legs out pretty far. And they had simple joints here. Now, one thing that this has over that, the little guys do, is that the heads on the originals, and this is an original Skeletor, he's got the squishy noggin, it just had a cut joint at the neck. And of course, the original Masters of the Universe figures had the spring in the waist. You could swing them and it'd swing back. Rah! That kind of thing. But you can see just looking at Skeletor here, the squatty proportions and all of the Mighty Master Skeletor is kind of copying that. But you'll notice that there's some things that are kind of funny in the design of these. Now, two of the figures come with the spring-loaded waists in this line. And you have to really get the waist cleared for Skeletor, and he will, well, it's kind of hard because yeah, you can see it there. He's got to flick back that way. His little belt kind of gets in the way. And the belt is a separate piece, but I don't really see, besides taking the thing apart, how you would get it off easily, because it doesn't have a clasp in the back like the original Skeletor did. And also the back of the harness is different. And you'll notice some other little differences with the Mighty Master Skeletor. For one, he has the bracers, the bracelets on. Like the iron bracelets or whatever he has there. And also, he has the original Skeletor, like the boot part of the leg, with some figures that use this same, well, let me explain this first if you don't know about it. Masters of the Universe was a toy line that they basically cut a lot of corners to make a great toy line by using the buck system. And by that, I mean almost all of the Masters of the Universe figures, except for a few special ones, use the same, well, all of them just about use the same waist and torso. So you have this muscular torso part, and you have the furry loincloth, panty type things, and a belt. And then they had different arms and they had different legs, but they were all styled around the same buck. It was the same shape, basically, that they used through all of the line. And they did the same thing with these. And I'll draw your attention to some things. The little, I can't remember what you call these things. It's a type of shin armor that people would use. The original Skeletor doesn't have that. He had like the three-toed feet, as you can see here, and it looked like he was wearing a boot. Now, some versions of Skeletor came out with just the front part of the boot down to the foot painted blue or purple, and some of them, it was the whole thing was just painted to right here, and it was not painted in the back. There's all kind of different variations of Masters of the Universe figures. That happens when you have a toy line that's basically using the same figure molds for several years. You'll have variations. But like I said, the bracers or the bracelets or whatever on the wrists are different than the original Skeletor. And also the little shin armor stuff. Now, what you'll find funny is if you look at an original Beastman figure, which I don't have a vintage Beastman, but I do have an Origins Beastman. The original Beastman didn't have leg armor. And if you really want to be picky about it, he didn't have toes either. I always thought it looked like he ran around in little sock feet, sneaking around. But later versions of Beastman, they gave him the monkey type feet. I know he wore boots in the Masters of the Universe cartoon, but most versions of him since then have used the feet, like monkey feet. But he has the same sculpt from the hip on down to the foot. So they both have, monsterish monkey feet. And they both have that same armor around the waist. They both have the same bracers here. And you'll also notice that a lot of times with the Masters of the Universe bad guys, they would have these webbed hands, and the fingers were more monstrous. They were pointy and stuff. These don't. And the reason for that is to share the sculpt between the good guys and the bad guys. They just had a universal. And a lot of people fuss about, it's reusing parts. Dude, that's the smart thing to do. If you're smart, if you want to keep the toys affordable and keep the line going and all, you use methods to cut the cost without making it at the expense of the character. This is Man-at-Arms. There's no doubt about it. He shares, the same waist or the same crotch piece, the same chest, the same arms with Skeletor. But the little difference is having him with the boots. Let's see, make sure I was focused in there. This part of the sculpt with the boots, I think it's all one piece. It doesn't look like it's two pieces glued together. But, that variation separates him from the Skeletor sculpt. But they still were able to reuse enough parts to where it cuts down on production. Because one of the things that I found out during my time in the toy industry, the small part that I had in it, the most expensive part of making toys, besides the materials, the most expensive piece of production is the mold. And if you can take one mold and run parts for everybody with that, you cut down on the cost automatically, and you can pass that on to the customer, unless you're Hasbro. But anyway, the three figures that I have open are Man-at-Arms, Skeletor and Beastman. Now, one I have not opened, and I don't intend to, is He-Man. Just because I wanted to keep one in the package. Because if you look at this package, some of the, like in particular, the Japanese Masters of the Universe figures from back in the day, they came in a package that was very similar to this, where it had like the print of the explosion and then a window where you could see the character through it. And I just wanted to show you guys the packaging. It has beautiful artwork on one side. The other side shows you what the figure comes with and how the action feature works. And Skeletor has the spring back waist, and so does He-Man. Now, the other two have, and I'll show you the back here. It's just nothing but sad language. Now, the difference, Beastman and Man-at-Arms do not have springed waists, but they have the swing arm, which was some, well, that's actually one of the problems with this design, is that several times using it, and right before I went to make this video, I tested the spring arm, and it flung the whip behind the couch. I had to go hunting for it, because it has a tendency to kind of come out of the hand, and then you, if you have it loose there, you send it flying. And you see it flew pretty good, because the spring on that arm rocks. But without the whip, you can see it's really good. And I got to say, these figures are really well detailed. Like if you look at the armor that he wears, it looks so much like the original. It's not funny. Even down to, and I don't have a vintage Beastman anymore, but the vintage Beastman, if you look, you can see it right here. On the back of his harness, there's a handle. And it's a handle that, with the original figures, it exactly matched Skeletor's gripping hand. So he could actually hold Beastman back by his collar. Rah, 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 so he'd attack like an animal. But they kind of ignored that after the original toys came out, and they never really depicted Skeletor reining him in like a dog. But even in the Origins line, they copied that same thing. And it's a hand grip. And a lot of people don't notice this. But if you take, and this has nothing to do with the Mighty Masters, but I just was showing this. If you take Skeletor, and I've not tested it with the Origins figure, but I know with the original figure, it would fit that thing perfectly. Like it even has a little dipped out place for the thumb to go right there. And that was the way he harnessed Beastman. And I like that they kept that through with the, well, you know what? I don't know that it's the, I don't think it's the original sculpt, but nah, it doesn't quite fit. It looks like this one was actually sculpted to better fit this grasping hand. So yeah, a little bit of weird bondage stuff in Masters of the Universe. You know, a line that is totally, you know, totally straight-laced and wouldn't have any bondage implications in it whatsoever. Hey. Anyway, I just thought that was a neat little thing, neat little detail that they included with that. And the detail is really cool, you know. But he has the flipping or swinging arm. Now, Man-at-Arms is supposed to have the same feature. Man-at-Arms, do your... That is the extent of the spring on this Man-at-Arms. I picked up a dud, didn't even know it. You can't get him to do it. I've tested it all different ways. The only movement he gets is like, right, yeah, about like that. And that's fine because I didn't really require them to have like any kind of action feature. Because neither one of these figures had the spring arms in the original, you know, 1980s Masters of the Universe line. That was reserved for figures like Fisto and Jitsu. They they had the arms because they were like combat masters. So Jitsu would swing down with his arm, and Fisto could too. They could do it either way. It's according to where you move the arm, because they had like kind of a, and I'm only going to do this once. If you push it, it can move out of its place, but I try to just keep it where it's supposed to be so that, you know, it'll return to the standard position there. But yeah, these little figures are great. And just to kind of show you how cool they look with, well, first of all, I'll give him back his, and that's another thing I wanted to mention is the weapons. The weapons are great. They're a lot like the original weapons in the original line, but they've got some stylistic differences to them. There's the little button things on the one side. Oh, let me get that in focus. There's the little button things on here and the little studs on here and the little open parts, which all of that stuff was kind of there on the original Man-at-Arms figure. One thing that I'm not happy with, these are kind of based on the original figures. Why does Man-at-Arms have a freaking mustache? Anyway, I know it's because of the cartoon, but, you know, there's a lot of us that this line particularly hits home for that didn't have the cartoon for our first, you know, year or so of Masters of the Universe enjoyment. Enough ranting, though. I like these figures too much to fuss about them. But, you know, here's Skeletor. And here he is with his vintage. This is a vintage Skeletor. Matter of fact, it's a vintage, if I'm not mistaken, like first edition Skeletor. It's not the original one that I owned when I was a kid. It was this is one I picked up later on. There we go. And this is the sorry, my throat is pretty yanged out. All right. This is the Origin Skeletor. And you can see the color is somewhere between the two. Like, this one is a brighter, well, no, he's actually brighter, my bad. He's got more red to his purple mix. But still looks great. I have a Skeletor collection. Like, Skeletor is my main dude with Masters of the Universe. So I'm going to, you know, if I just got to pick up one figure out of each line of Masters of the Universe, it's going to be Skeletor. But yeah, I think he looks really good with his counterparts. And Skeletor, of course, has had a chance to be with his other counterparts because he's in my Skeletor collection. The other guys match up with their, I don't have the vintage versions of the other dudes, but let's see, I'll do this. Yeah, that looks fine. Let's see, set this up a little bit right there. But I don't have the vintage, but I have a hybrid, which is a Origins Man-at-Arms with a vintage Man-at-Arms' head. Because when I picked this guy up, they had him come standard with the mustached head. And that is not the Man-at-Arms from my memory, because I was going on the mini comic books, the coloring books, the early Golden books, and in particular, the early DC comic book series where Man-at-Arms was clean shaven. And he also looks like Ernest Borgnine. You'll never be able to unsee it. Anyway, Ernest Borgnine was honestly a really cool actor. But I was going to wait to see if they were going to put out a Man-at-Arms that was without a stash. And I was like, I've still got the mustached head because, you know, they pop off. But I took a vintage, you know, the vintage Man-at-Arms head that was closest to, you know, being in perfect shape. And it really was pretty good. And I just trimmed off the neck. And there was enough of a little hole left inside of that it popped right on. Like, I can See, it popped right on that ball that was part of the neck joint. And I was happy. This is my Man-at-Arms figure for my collection now. And anyway, I may, and I don't think I ever mentioned that these guys at retail are like $5. I might have mentioned that earlier. Can't remember. Don't have that kind of memory. But yeah, they're $5. They're like $4.97 or $4.98, whatever, at Walmart right now. And I've only seen them at Walmart. That doesn't mean they're Walmart exclusives. It may mean they are, but I would think that stores like Dollar General and Dollar Tree, now that they have $5 items, Five Below, they would pop up at those stores. But the only stores I've seen these at have been Walmart. But since they're so cheap, I'm thinking about picking up another Man-at-Arms and just giving him a little trim off of that mustache so he can look more like his vintage self. But, you know, I'm kind of weird that way. And finally, we'll put Beastman with Beastman. And here you go. There's the Masters of the Universe. Well, to be fair and keep everything even here, I'll put him with that. I'm a weird guy. Just deal with me. I think you guys know I'm a weird guy by now. But yeah, there's so far the mighty Masters that I have. I really want this toy line to sell well because I want more. I want a Mini Masters Zodak, a Mini Masters Merman, a Mini Master, or Mighty Masters, not Mighty. They should have been Mini Masters. I guess maybe they already had a line called Mini Masters. I'm not sure. Mighty Masters. I want Mighty Masters of those, you know. And I don't even care if they don't have like little gimmick features. Just give all of them spring waists and do a mecha neck, you know, with an extended head. You don't even have to have like the regular tucked in head. Give us a Manny Faces. Don't, you know. And he doesn't even have to really change his faces, but it would be real easy to do. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. I like these guys. I like the price point. And good luck hunting, because I know that I have seen a couple of Walmarts where they just had empty boxes. Like people had bought all of them. So if they're going like that in your neck of the woods, good luck, good hunting, and I hope you find them if you like them. Remember to leave a like or a thumbs down, whichever, you know, makes you happier. Leave a comment telling me you had fun with the video or calling me a poop head. It's totally cool to call me a poop head. I don't care. And, you know, hit the subscribe button to have more videos come out. And I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Monster Forge. Oh, bro.